I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to our Regional Council meeting on February the 22nd, 2023. I now will ask Will Short, Regional Clerk, to do the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Craig.
Present.
Councillor Deutschmann.
Present.
Councillor Erb. Councillor Foxton. Councillor Harris.
Present.
Present. Present for Foxton. Sorry.
Gotcha. Councillor Huenink.
Present.
Councillor James.
Present.
Councillor Liggett.
Present.
Councillor McCabe.
Present.
Councillor Nowak. Councillor Solonen.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor Verbanovic.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
And Councillor Wolf.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. What I have learned with working with Indigenous people is that our relationship to the land should be one of stewardship, not ownership, and I am honored to make this journey with them. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Liggett, I saw that hand go up and down. I'm assuming that was unintentional. Councillor Wolf.
Anything to do with the airport right now, I would declare.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to welcome everyone and let you know how today is going to unfold. We have met as council and we will hear delegations. And after that, we will suspend council and go back into our budget deliberations, and you are all most welcome to stay. After that, we will go into closed session and then come out in council. So we're just hitting our stride, sort of the shank of the afternoon, as it were. So you're all welcome. I have no presentations or petitions. However, we have delegations. Today's delegates have been allotted 5 minutes to speak. And I would remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation. If you conduct yourself in the following manner, it will result in an immediate removal from the meeting. Interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegates. Derogatory statements about council, staff, or others. Turning your camera on at inappropriate times, and any hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations, please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from community members. First delegation is Shanon Kerr from Waterloo. Shanon, welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Hi there. Is my presentation available, or do I need to share that?
Shanon, if you could share it, it was not. We don't have one to share, Shanon. It was too late, but if you have one and you can screen share, feel free. Otherwise, you can give us a verbal update.
Okay, I will try to share it in the share screen.
You can try and share your screen, sure.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with how to do that. Has someone got guidance? I'm trying to get it in there, sorry. Do you see my screen?
We see your Zoom screen, Shanon, but not your slide deck. Do you have a, can you pull it up and share it?
I don't know where to share it is what I'm asking.
Okay, I think you're good to go, Shannon. We see COVID is airborne.
Okay. Thank you for giving me 5 minutes. I think this is probably one of the most important things that we could be talking about. COVID transmission in our community has been addressed as much as we could from the standpoint of thinking of it as a droplet contact transmission. But science has proven to us in the last few years that COVID is actually transmitted between people in the airborne form. Don't know how to change my screen. Okay. So the difference between it being airborne and droplet. I don't know why this isn't advancing. Oh, there we go. Okay, so air, it's what we breathe. It's composed of gases and particles. It behaves as a fluid. An aerosol, which Public Health Canada has described virus as, is a material that's in stable suspension where it floats and lingers, as Dr. Wong pointed out in the last council meeting, as opposed to droplets, which fall out of suspension due to their size. Airborne transmission is the route of infectious agent takes where it remains an aerosol and is able to move around barriers and disperse further distances. Droplet transmission is the route infectious agents take where they're contained in body fluid and secretions that immediately fall out of the air suspension and are brought into the body via contaminated hands or sprayed directly onto mucous membranes. And I mentioned AGMPs because I spoke with Dr. Emily, the Deputy Medical Officer of Health, and she said that COVID is only situationally airborne, as in only the situation being aerosol generating medical procedures, and that being the only time where higher levels of protection are required for people. An aerosol generating medical procedure is a specifically designed procedure action that is determined to produce infectious aerosols. But recent science has shown that speaking and breathing are also significant and ubiquitous sources of infectious aerosols. Waterloo, where we live, is known for science and innovation. And I think that we can be leaders, and you, councillors, can bring public health to the effective stance of accepting that airborne transmission is the primary route for transmission of COVID. There's limited evidence that hand washing prevents the spread of COVID-19. And that's from a study that I listed there. COVID is a disease of the blood vessels, not truly a respiratory disease. It has been shown to reduce brain size, and cognitive decline is seen in many people with even mild infections being asymptomatic. And vaccines, we know, are very good, but they only slightly reduce the risk of long COVID, which is shown to be true. And we have many people suffering from long COVID in our region. We've known that SARS, the virus, which COVID is, has been airborne since the outbreak in Toronto a few years ago. And we know that respiratory PPE is respirators, not just masks. Air quality monitoring is required. Ventilation and air filtration help. What I'm asking is for Dr. Wong to please address the issue of aerosol transmission, and please communicate with the public that speaking and breathing spread COVID. It's not just droplets that fall to the ground and we pick up and can clean off our hands. This is the public messaging going out, which is why I'm concerned. I don't think people know ways to protect themselves effectively without saying the word airborne.
So Shannon, your 5 minutes are up. I gave you some extra time because you had
Thank
some
you.
technical difficulties at the beginning. If you could just finish up now with a few concluding comments, that would be great.
Okay. Well, what I see is that workers aren't properly protected, especially in long-term care, because the isolation requirements are not up with the science. We're seeing droplet contact signs, and we should be seeing airborne signs and use of air filtration to minimize worker exposure, as well as senior exposure. We can cut the rate of transmission if we address the mode of transmission.
Thank you very much, Shannon. I don't see any questions of clarification, so thank you for bringing your thoughts to us this evening. The next delegation is Auntie Kenny and Chestnut. And I believe you two are joining us virtually. So Auntie Kenny, you have 5 minutes starting now. Welcome. Auntie Kenny, we have you in the Zoom room. Would you like to begin?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay. Bonjour, Palajita, or wicked. Okay, how's that?
Maybe if you turn off your device, it sounds like you're getting feedback, or we're hearing it.
Hang on 1 second.
Much better. Go ahead.
You can power off when you want it to. Okay, Sego, bonjour, hello. So 5 minutes is not a lot of time to encapsulate the last 7 field seasons that we have conducted out here at the Emergency Operations Center of the Indigenous Fire Marshal Service. We provide ground support services for the Survivors Secretariat, and we have been working since before COVID. And I work with my partner, Chestnut Wonder Dog Seppala. And so we've been here prior to COVID. And I would agree with the previous delegate that there are some opportunities for the region of Waterloo to be innovators and to lead the way in terms of leveraging our knowledge of the landscape and all of the data that we've accumulated. We call it metadata. So this is data that when we did our water sampling, our air sampling, and in the region of Waterloo, it's a bit of a different situation in that instead of sending out the samples to a commercial lab that is certified and accredited by the province of Ontario, the region of Waterloo had the ability to send their samples to internally to environmental services, which I believe has their head offices down on Maple Grove Road beside Waterloo Regional Police Services headquarters. So we have a lot of data, and we also have some other reports that were paid for with municipal tier public money in the form of the Tanaka report, which was presented internationally at a symposium that I attended either in 2020 or 2020. I contacted the author, Dr. Steve Tanaka, who's currently working in the province of Alberta. They said they were not able to release the report to me, but that they could release for purposes to be shared with the public because the region of Waterloo paid for it. And then the other sources of information that we have are downriver. We have data from our colleagues at the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Agency, otherwise known as NOAA, mostly American, based out of the States. And also the International Joint Commission has been monitoring the health of the Great Lakes, which of course, water that is discharged into the Grand River from at points going from Port Maitland up to Dundalk. So 900, that's a pretty big watershed. They have picked up sources of chemical signatures that could impact resident health, and this would include at all levels of the ecosystem. And we also, I come from Six Nations, so I am in regular contact with our colleagues downriver and our treaty partners downriver. And we have been monitoring water quantity as well as water quality for several decades now, and we work with the engineering school at McMaster University. So all by way of saying, we believe that the region of Waterloo is
You have 1
uniquely
minute remaining,
positioned-
Annie Candy.
Thank you, Nyawagoa. I appreciate that. The region of Waterloo has all of the pieces of the puzzle that we need in order to communicate important information that is credible and reliable and meets actually a courtroom standard of evidence. And in a way so that will enable decision-making that is based on the best information that is available. So cutting-edge science. So how we do that is going to be decided by the community itself. Those agencies or organizations that have collected the information to release it back, all of the information that we have that falls within the Grand River watershed.
Thank you, Annie
release it
Kenny. If
back
you
to
want
the
to
region
sum
of
up right
Waterloo.
now, you're out of time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So one of the things that I believe would move us forward would be if those agencies that have completed contracts with the region of Waterloo could, because we now have a new council, if they could say, yes, we have this data, it belongs to the residents of the region of Waterloo, and then we can collect it, see what we have, and then decide how we're going to share it to enable informed decision-making, free, prior informed decision-making.
Thank you very much, Auntie Kenny. I see no questions from council, so again, thank you for bringing this issue forward. And I would now welcome our next delegation, Nabil Kohistani. Nabil, welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Nabil Kohistani, and tonight I'll be discussing the homeless crisis in the KW region. Seeing homeless encampments piling in Victoria Park and Weber Street has been frequent these past few years. As a KW resident who has lived here all my life, I find this upsetting that we as a community haven't found any solutions to house and support the homeless. And next slide. There have been concerns from the encampments of unauthorized fires and teenagers visiting these areas for drug abuse or sex trafficking. I believe compassion should be shown to both sides, and I appreciate the work that has been done by Mrs. Redmond, the Waterloo Region Council, and previous delegates who've advocated for this issue. Next slide. However, with the recent result of the Superior Court not allowing Waterloo Region to evict the homeless from these encampments, we need to ask ourselves, and next slide, how can we prepare and plan for the spring? And how can we give the homeless population the shelter and support that they deserve? These are questions that I urge all of you to ask yourselves, and why I'm proposing several steps that should be taken. Next slide. One of these steps is regarding Bill 23 and the inclusionary zoning bylaw. Bill 23 proposes that more homes will be built faster to help address the housing crisis in Ontario. Part of the bill states, and I quote, "This legislation supports regulatory changes to provide certainty regarding inclusionary zoning rules with a maximum 25-year affordability period, a 5% cap rate on the number of affordable inclusionary zoning units, and a standardized approach to determining the price or rent of an affordable unit under an inclusionary zoning program," end quote. The term affordable is used very loosely here. How will we know that these houses will be affordable for years to come or for future generations to come? Additionally, the 5% cap rate only accounts for certain properties. Not every property is allowed to do this. Next slide. Kitchener residents themselves also believe that this bill should be altered. An article written by Liz Montero for the record included perspective from a resident who lives in Victoria Park. In the article, she claims that the 5% cap rate is too low and should be much higher. This small percentage won't even guarantee housing for the homeless. If anything, inclusionary zoning will continue to favor those who already have housing and not those who are in desperate need of one. Bringing change to the housing market is the biggest step forward to solving the homeless crisis in the KW region. Next slide. I also wanted to discuss the creation of more affordable housing programs that have been specifically tailored to the homeless. We've seen programs such as the YW Block Line that have been specifically designed to build affordable housing for homeless women. Not only did it provide them with a place to live, but it gave them hope, something that you wouldn't find in these encampments. The homes were built with support, such as daily life crisis management, daily life skills, and access to food bank services. If the cap rate on affordable homes is raised, this can help encourage the creation of more affordable housing programs. Now, to be transparent with you all, I actually gave this presentation already to Mr. Verbanovich and Kitchener City Council last month, and they too agreed with what I had to say and the change that needs to happen in the KW for the homeless. I believe the Waterloo region can collaborate and find the means to help the homeless population. But it won't happen until affordable housing changes and the homeless population is respected. Thank you. And next slide.
Thank you very much, Nabil. I see no questions, so thank you very much for bringing your presentation to Regional Council. We do appreciate the input. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to address Council? If you would like to, please come forward and state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Myron Steinman. I am a father, husband, homeowner in Waterloo region. Is it true that Municipal Council cannot go in debt? I believe it is true that municipal councils cannot go in debt. Is it true that municipal councils have limited ways to raise funds? I believe the council has limited ways to raise funds. One of the ways to raise funds is to tax homeowners and to tax people who rent, and through that they tax renters, actually at a higher rate than homeowners get taxed, that's my understanding. So my question is concerning, I wear a few hats. My concern is with the budget, with the increase of the police budget that you're consulting tonight. The police budget, I believe, is proposed to be increased by 13 million. I believe it increases more than 40% of Waterloo Regional Council. I'm not sure of that. Thank you. That is my concerns.
Thank you very much, Myron. Is there anyone else that would like to address Council? Seeing none, we will take a slight recess and resume a strategic plan and budget committee meeting. And after that, then we will resume Council. So thank you to the delegates for providing your information and your input, and we will suspend for 5 minutes.